So we're going to talk about market failure now. Before we get started, however, we should definitely talk about what a market that doesn't fail looks like. So here's a perfectly competitive market, and we can represent a perfectly competitive market with a downward sloping market demand curve and an upward sloping market supply curve. The downward sloping demand curve also reflects the marginal benefits to consumers of each additional unit of the product purchased. Meanwhile, the supply curve reflects the marginal cost of each additional unit of a product produced. Now we know that in a perfectly competitive market, which is unencumbered by government intervention of any kind, it's a free market, the price will gravitate to a level at which the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. This is reflected by the intersection of the demand and supply curves. Something we should also note, however, is that if we further assume that the only people impacted by the buying and selling of these products are the buyers and sellers in the market itself. That is, there are no bystanders external to the market who are affected. We can say that the demand curve, or the marginal benefit curve, is simultaneously the marginal social benefit curve. That is, the marginal benefits that accrue to the society as a whole. Since the consumers of this product are members of society, and they are the only ones affected by the consumption of the product, then we can say that this represents their marginal benefits are simultaneously the marginal benefits of the society. The same story applies for the supply curve. If there are no parties external to this market who are affected, then the marginal costs borne by the suppliers of this product equal the marginal cost to the society as a whole of producing this product. That is, the marginal social costs will equal the marginal costs, the private costs. So far, so good. And we can see at equilibrium that the equilibrium price will be equal to the marginal cost and therefore the marginal social cost, as well as the marginal private benefit and therefore the marginal social benefit. In this case, where this condition holds, we can say that the market is allocatively efficient. It is allocating resources in such a way that it is rational. In the same way as the example of you personally, say, eating slices of pizza. While the marginal benefit of the next slice is greater than the marginal cost, you should keep eating pizza until you get to a point where the marginal benefit of the last slice just equals the marginal cost to you of the last slice. At that point, you will have reached the optimum number of slices of pizza to eat, and you will behave rationally by consuming that amount and no more. The same principle applies to the market as a whole. At equilibrium, the marginal benefit to the consumers just equals the marginal cost of producing the product. So for this market, we can say that it is rationally allocating its resources. Well, so far, so good. Now, a market failure will be where this doesn't happen, where the free market does not generate this kind of outcome, where the marginal social benefits just equal the marginal social costs, the last unit at equilibrium. What could cause a market to fail to produce this kind of outcome? Well, we've got a list, and we're going to go through these in other little videos. The first and most obvious one is that a market might not be perfectly competitive. That is, it might be the case that the sellers in the marketplace in particular have market power. That is, they have the capacity to influence the market price to their own advantage in an attempt to maximize their profits. And in that situation, it might be the case that the price that they charge consumers is above their marginal costs of production. And therefore we would say the market fails to produce an allocatively efficient outcome. There also might be externalities. You'll remember a few seconds ago I referred to a situation where the only people affected by the decisions made in the market are the participants in the market. But what if there are bystanders who are affected by the decisions made by the consumers and the producers? The effects that they feel are not taken account of in the market. Well, there's no reason why they would necessarily be taken account of in the market. And yet, we would say that if a market is not taking account of all of the costs and all of the benefits of the production and consumption of a good, then it will fail to allocate resources in an efficient way that does take account of all those costs and benefits. Furthermore, there are certain types of goods which are not provided in the requisite quantities in free markets, if they're competitive or even if they're not. So there are certain kinds of goods, such as public goods, which tend to be underproduced. And there are also other kinds of goods, in particular what we call common goods or common resources, which tend to be overutilized in a free market. And finally, it might be the case that consumers have ill-formed preferences. They might not be aware of all of the benefits of a product to them, and so they might underconsume. Or they might be simply idiots, and even though they realize what's in their best interest, for some reason or other, they simply refuse to purchase the product which would be beneficial to them. Okay, so let's work through these cases.